Special board meeting for board candidate interviews, Wednesday, January 26, will come to order. We'll take a roll call vote.
Thank you. Ms. Cutter is here. Mr. Wiseman.
Here.
Mrs. Forrest.
That's weird. Here.
Oh, good. Mrs. Pastana.
Here.
And Mrs. Dodd.
She is absent, but I have a letter that I will read after your roll call.
Very good. And Mr. Carlson.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We received a letter from Ms. Dodd, and it says, "Dear board colleagues, central office administrative team, and the Huron Valley School community. This evening, the Huron Valley Schools Board of Education takes on the important task of interviewing, deliberating, and appointing the newest trustee. This morning, I was given a COVID PCR test, and the test results came back positive. Out of an abundance of caution, following local, state, and federal protocols, I am quarantining at home and will be unable to attend this meeting. The Public Meetings Act requires in-person attendance for all public meetings and deliberations, and that is not possible for me at this time. I have great confidence in my Huron Valley School Board colleagues to conduct thorough interviews, develop a strong understanding of each candidate, and come to a consensus on who will be the best addition to the board. I'm grateful for the 11 candidates who stepped up and applied for this position, and appreciative of the 4 who will be interviewed tonight. They are a great group, and I know this decision will be difficult. As Huron Valley Schools continues the important work of building futures one student at a time, I look forward to working with whomever my board colleagues select to do the important governance work of offering strong public education for our community. Sincerely and with gratitude, Laura Dodd, Trustee, Huron Valley School Board of Education." So I'll submit that for the record in regards to her absence here tonight. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance on your left, our right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to get a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Weissman, supported by Ms. Forrest. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Agenda is approved as presented. We'll now move into our board candidate interviews. And I would like to welcome Eric Lakin. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for submitting an application, and we're very appreciative of stepping up in the community and applying for this position. If you can, we all got your packet, and I know you provided a little bit of background in your packet. And if you could just give us some highlights, a couple of minutes of highlights of your background in this community, where you work and family, and whatever you feel is appropriate.
Well, great, and thank you.
And you can take off your mask as well as you're speaking.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Actually, my reading glasses fog up quite a bit, so that might be better. So first of all, thank you all very much for the opportunity to sit with you this evening and to talk a little bit about myself. I understand this is a very important role that you need to fill. I think when these opportunities come up, it is great when we see a lot of people step up from the community and apply for such a role. So I'm confident that you'll end up finding the right person. My family and I live in Milford, in the township, just outside of the village as you go towards Camp Dearborn, actually right across from the equestrian area in Kensington. My daughter Vivian is a junior at Milford High, and we have been parents in the district since she was in kindergarten, starting at Spring Mills. We actually did the School of Choice program for a number of years, and then a few years ago, when we knew we wanted to be in the actual district, we moved from White Lake and into Milford, where we're at now. So we've been there now almost 5 years. And we've loved it. Being part of the Milford community has been great for us, and being part of the school district has been wonderful for my wife and I, as well as for our daughter. I have been, for as long as I can remember, I have been an IT professional. I started in 1999 working with General Motors, managing help desks. I did that for a number of years. I also managed deploying manufacturing systems in emerging markets in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia for General Motors. GM went into a bankruptcy in 2009. I left there and transitioned into another IT role in healthcare. And for 7 years, I was managing storage, data centers, and compute systems for Trinity Health, which is one of the largest Catholic healthcare systems in the country, 80 hospitals across 21 states. And I did that for about 7 years, and then an opportunity at University of Michigan came up, one that I was really interested in because Michigan's a great place to work, great community, good opportunities for advancement and things like that. And so for the past almost 8 years, I have been managing IT systems and infrastructure, storage, compute, data protection, most recently data centers, communication rooms, telephony locations, and things like that in my role as the Assistant Director of Data Center Engineering and Operations. So I've been dealing with IT vendors, business relationships, large-scale deployments, RFPs, RFQs, but obviously primarily in the IT space, but a lot of that I think translates to almost any industry. And so that's kind of a background of me and of my family and what I've been doing for the last 20 years or so.
Thank you, Mr. Lakin. I'm going to ask one more question here, and then I'll turn it over to the board members. Why are you interested in serving on the school board?
Well, I'm interested because I see it as an opportunity to maybe apply some of the skills, some of the background that I have into something that's a little bit different for me. But at the same time, maybe there's some benefit to the experience that I have that the board could use and could utilize to continue improving the experience of our students and faculty and staff in the district. I am very interested in continuing sort of this growth that I've had in the last few years of trying to give back to the school, specifically at Milford High, and to the district. I've been more and more involved lately with things my daughter is involved in from a theater perspective, and that's kind of opened my eyes to the opportunity and quite honestly the joy that I've had of being more involved in district activities as a whole. So I think it's an important part, of our civic duty if there's an opportunity, if we think we can help, if we think we can provide some value. And so that's why I'm here today.
All right. Thank you very much. Next question is our Vice President, Denise Forrest.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for being here. Okay, in these challenging times, the challenging times we're faced this year, why have you decided to be part of the decision-making process?
The decisions, I think, I will assume that the decisions of the board have always been difficult and fraught with some degree of, love and hate from the community. And I think they're only going to get more difficult. I feel like I could bring a perspective to some of this decision-making that could be valuable. I like to approach difficult challenges, and I like to see if there's a way that I can provide value and to be an additive, entity in the group. And so that's the primary reason.
Okay, so how do you approach problem solving then?
Sometimes it depends on the problem, but I think primarily the first thing you have to do is listen. And I think a lot of times that's where, problem solving runs into difficulty. If you don't listen and sort of understand all the facts and understand all the people who maybe are stakeholders, it's very difficult to come to a good resolution. But if you can find a way to collaborate and if you can find a way to build consensus, through listening and relationship building, I think that's the best way to approach problem solving. And that's what's been successful for me.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next question, our secretary, Ms. Cotter.
Thank you, and welcome tonight.
Thank you.
So what do you think are the most important skills, and this would, certainly, I'm directing this because you have a daughter in high school. What do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they do graduate?
I am hopeful that when my daughter graduates, that the skills she leaves with include creative thinking and creative problem solving. I remember when I left high school, things were quite a bit different in 1987, and I remember a few years after leaving, wishing that there were some things that had maybe been focused on a little more that would have helped me perhaps on my path a little quicker than it took me to find that path. And I'm hopeful and I'm confident because I see the kids, in my daughter's class and those that have graduated before her and those that were behind her or are behind her. I see them building those skill sets in a way that I don't think I ever had the opportunity to. I think another set of skills that'll be important will be learning how to function in a society that is changing much more rapidly than it has at any time in the past. There are things like the COVID pandemic and the security issues that we're seeing not only in our schools but in our communities. And I think the coping skills that the kids are going to have to develop while they're students are going to be critical for them to be successful when they get into whether it's college or some kind of a trade school program or anything that takes them to the next stage in their lives.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. Carlson, may I ask one short question?
Yes. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Is this your first board meeting?
It's not.
Okay.
We came to a couple of board meetings in person, and then we've listened to a couple of them over the years. Quite frankly, I think sometimes I've been a little guilty of being busy and finding myself, I planned to attend the meeting, but I didn't get to attend the meeting, which I'm a little remiss about, to be honest. But I have taken the opportunity recently to kind of go back through and acquaint myself with some of the meeting minutes and some of the other things that the board was working on to try and, build a little bit of a body of knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
All right. Thank you. Next question is to Mr. Weissman.
Yes. Welcome, Eric.
Thank
you for being here. Working effectively with other school board members in the superintendent requires skills in communication and decision-making. How do you see yourself working with other members of the leadership team, and what is your vision for education in this community?
Well, coming into a group like this, new, I think one of the most important things for me to do first would be to sort of listen and understand and learn from everyone to see how the dynamic works interpersonally and also within the group as a whole. I believe that joining a group like this and coming in with preconceived notions of how I would work with the team might be unfair. I think it's important to learn how to work with each individual person that you run into, whether it's someone that you're employed with or someone that you're serving with on a board. And you have to build relationships and understand what's important to them. You have to understand how to collaborate with them, and you have to understand what it's going to take to build consensus with them. And I'm sorry, can I ask the second part of your question again?
Sure. And what is your vision for the education in this community?
I guess it's student success, which is maybe difficult to distill, down further. Success can be measured a lot of different ways. And to be honest, if I'm selected to be a member of the board, I hope to learn a lot more about what that may involve. But the success, I think, of the students is the ultimate goal of the board, of the schools, of the district, of the faculty, of the staff.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Weissman. Mr. Weissman, can you take the next question?
Sure. As a board member, you'll be asked to make decisions. I don't have the other. I'm sorry. No.
To make comments.
Number 19. Okay. Excuse me. I failed to make a copy of the other question. One of the key elements of being on the board is being well prepared. As a board member, you'll be asked to make decisions where you must put aside what's best for you, your family, your friends, and your school to do what's best for all the students in the district. What does this mean to you?
Well, I've never been an elected official. And I think regardless of the position, it really means the same thing. It means understanding that you are representing something larger than yourself. You are representing, a population of people that have, maybe widely differing beliefs on a variety of topics, political, education, or otherwise. And I think the role is to put aside your personal beliefs, as you mentioned, and find a way to sort of gather what the needs and the desires of the community are, and then to be a good representative for them.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question is to our treasurer, Ms. Pastana.
Hello, Eric.
Hi.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Well, that's a lot to unpack.
Yes, it is.
One that comes to mind, which I think is recent, and obviously I don't have the the long-term experience, is what I determined and what I think the board determined to be a little bit of a conflict between CDC guidelines and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services when it comes to COVID in general and the difference between someone who has perhaps been exposed to COVID or someone who has tested positive to COVID and whether or not they should be isolated. The differences between the two organizations when it comes potentially to masking requirements and things like that. And I think the board, as of at least the last meeting perhaps, was still waiting on maybe further guidance or was doing some internal deliberation. I'm not sure. But I think that sort of problem is interesting because that's the kind of thing that I think we're going to see more of as we get different maybe guidance from federal versus state versus local authorities. Now, I'm not sure if I'm tying this back into all of your question. Could you give that just to me one more time?
Yeah, you are on the right track. Yeah, so identify a recent decision and describe how you would balance the community, students, the state and federal, and staff considerations versus your personal values and beliefs in order to make a vote on the decision.
Understood. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, I certainly have my own values and beliefs when it comes to that topic. But I'm a firm believer that what we have to do is first follow the law. And then if there isn't, case law, I guess, that's pertinent, then we need to follow the advice and the guidance of the professionals who I think we should trust, whether it be the CDC or, healthcare providers, doctors, et cetera. And I think, balancing that might be difficult. Living in the district, living in Milford in particular, there are absolutely some very vocal people on both sides of the conversation, because I do believe there are really only two sides. There doesn't seem to be a middle that I see very often, at least on Facebook. Don't use that as a guideline. But I think the balance is tenuous, and I think no matter what is decided, you're going to have a lot of people who are unhappy. So I think you have to gather the facts, you have to listen to the trusted sources, and you have to make a difficult decision that you think is going to be the best ultimately for the students.
All right, I've got a series of questions, more or less clarifying questions. On your application, time availability, nothing was checked, so that's suggesting that you have open schedule, that you can be flexible for committee meetings or board meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, my understanding was checking something meant that I was absolutely not available.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And that was the question.
Yes, I've been working remotely since the beginning of the pandemic. I have a fairly flexible schedule.
Okay. All right. I wanted to clarify that. The other thing I wanted to clarify, there's a couple of yes/no questions.
Sure.
One was we just want a clarification whether you have any issue or concerns with or attending MASB, which is the Michigan Association of School Boards, or NSBA, which is the National School Board Association conferences and trainings to become a certified board member.
I have no issues doing that.
And then another clarifying question was that you understand that this appointment is a nonpartisan board position, that you are being appointed to that, and that party politics and platforms or issues of the Republican or Democratic parties have no place at the Board of Education table.
I understand that, and I agree with that completely.
Okay. And I also, and then the last part is for you. Any last statements or comments that you have for this board? Oh, I just, one other thing before you answer that.
Sure.
I wanted to ask the question, if appointed to this position, you would feel the balance of this, the balance of this year up until the election. And if you chose to run, because there will be on the ballot a special election to fill the balance of this term,
Right.
that will conclude December 31st, 2024. Would you have an intention to run for that position or another position on the board?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And then last statement for you and any comments you have for us as a board.
Well, thank you. These have been, great questions. Certainly a few of them made me kind of think a little more deeply. I felt a little unprepared, having not attended as many board meetings as I think I probably should have, and certainly I am committed to do a much better job of that, even if I'm not selected to join the board. I think the closing thought that I have is that one of the questions in the application kind of struck me, and I think it had to do with what public education means to me, and I think it probably means something different to everyone depending on their background and where they grew up, how they grew up, etc. And I think that access to public school education is kind of a foundational principle of American life, of our democracy, and the opportunity to kind of be a part of the group that might help with that governance. And I like to, definitely, I think there's a difference between the governance aspect and the management aspect of managing a school and being part of a school board. I think that's an interesting thing to be involved with. I think it's important that we recognize that distinction and that we know that we really need to stay, in a very specific lane. I had kind of made some notes here on that topic because I was thinking about the difference between, a body like the board and the faculty and staff within the schools. And I was thinking of governance as, something that sets goals and guardrails and maybe timelines, where management is something that is more akin to setting resource allocation and then executing a plan. And I like to think that's the vision that I have for being a board member. And I hope that's in alignment with what you all think and believe and what you try to execute. And I think if that's the case, then I think I'd be a good fit for the board, and I'd be very proud to join.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here
Thank
this
you.
evening.
I appreciate the time. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
So turn this off.
Welcome, Brian. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to take off your mask. You'll be doing most of the talking, so hopefully that's the case. Just want to kick this off. There's a series of questions that we have. I'll call on the different board members. Feel free to take your time to answer the questions. Generally, 2 to 3 minutes per question, but there might be a few follow-up questions that come as well. But I'd like to just start off giving a little bit of a background on yourself.
So I'm a 20-year resident of District 2 in 2001. Oh, there we go. I have 2 sons. I graduated from Lakeland High School. I went through the Country Oaks, Oak Valley chain, and one graduated in 2015. He is a proud graduate of Michigan State as well, and recently engaged another Lakeland grad. So we have a wedding in our future. So I have another son who graduated in 2020. So in the heat of the COVID epidemic, and lost a lot of things that went along with that. And now he's at Michigan State as well. Very proud of what they've been able to accomplish, and very proud of their experience that they had at Huron Valley. A little bit about myself and my background. So I have primarily been a leader within the contact center industry, if you would. So all those fun calls that you might make for customer service would end up in a call center that I manage, usually in the automotive industry. Primarily with the big 6, be it Nissan or Ford or now General Motors. So for the last 5 years, I've been in General Motors, and I oversee client relationships that we have with our major suppliers that staff our 5,000 person call centers globally. So I deal with very large budgets and very large dollar amounts in terms of the contracts that we hold with those suppliers. I make sure those relationships, I make sure they follow up on their contracts, and I make sure those relationships are sound, both for the benefit of General Motors as well as the suppliers. Back to some of my experience from the school standpoint, like I said, my kids went through all 3 schools. I've been trying to be involved in as much as possible. Both were very involved in athletics, so I was always involved in that aspect. I've also been a basketball referee for the last 32 years, so it gives me a unique perspective being able to visit multiple high schools within a given week.
And you're used to getting yelled at.
And getting yelled at, yes. You have to have very thick skin to be able to handle that. So last night I was at Country Day. Last week I was at Waterford, and I travel around, and sometimes I referee here. So it's a little bit about what I've done and how I ended up here.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
My question here is, why are you interested in serving on the school board?
So I think what it goes back to is I really appreciated what Huron Valley gave to my children, my sons. And this is my way of giving something back, because through the years, I've grown to appreciate what Huron Valley schools are all about, the teachers, and the level of education that they have received. I look at my younger son's grades at least once a semester, and I become more and more proud of how he's doing at Michigan State and how proud my younger son is. So I equate that back to the education you received here, not only just the classes, but also the social indoctrination that you go through as you grow up and proceed through school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is for Vice President Denise Forrest.
That's me. Hey, thanks for being here. In the challenging times that we have faced this year and last year, why have you decided to be part of this decision-making process other than what you've just mentioned?
Great question. So I have a lot of friends that work in the school industry, and when I chose to put my name out there for this, a lot of them asked that exact question. Why would you do it now? Exactly. But some of them are very supportive. So, I listen to them more than the other ones. I think it's more of where I'm at in my life, in my career. I have the time to give back. I've always been somewhat interested in being part of the board. And given my boys coming through the school and the knowledge that I've gained throughout that, I feel as if I can really add to the board and to Huron Valley Schools. So I don't think of it as much as, this is a bad time to join a school district. I think of it as more of a time that I'm prepared, the opportunity to present itself. So why not go after it right now? As I progress throughout my career at General Motors or anywhere else, I don't sit back. If there's an opportunity that presents itself, I go after it, knowing that when all is said and done, I can make the best of it, and usually it turns out pretty successful.
Our next question is from our secretary, Ms. Cotter.
Yes. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
So this question, what do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate Huron Valley?
Well, as my sons, I just mentioned how proud I was of how they came out of high school and how prepared they were for college, and the grades that they're getting and how well they performed. I came out of a very small school up in the Thumb, and I was not prepared at all. I walked into Michigan State fall term freshman year with my eyes as big as possible, and it took me a while to get my feet underneath me. So I realized the difference that Huron Valley was able to give to my boys in terms of preparing them not only just educationally, because I don't want to say that's the easy part, but that's the required part, but also socially and how they grew as young men and how they were prepared to handle being on their own, the challenges that creates, and doing the things that, you no longer have your parents to kind of look over you and to bounce ideas off on a nightly basis. So I saw that as another area that socially, through the teachers that they interacted with, the coaches that they interacted with, the staff, that they are prepared to be young men out on their own. So that's what I really appreciated as they went on. And like I said, their grades demonstrated the educational side of it as well.
Thank you very much. Is this your first board meeting?
I attended one with my older son. I forget what he's recognized for, and he's going to be upset that I don't remember exactly. But other than that, I've seen them online and watched them. So it's been a while, though. My older son graduated in 15.
All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Okay, the next question is from Mr. Weissman, question 22.
Thank you very much for being here, Brian. Good seeing you.
Yep.
Working effectively with other school board members and the superintendent requires skills and communication in decision-making. How do you see yourself working with other members of this leadership team? What is your vision for education in this community?
So I think that goes into anything in life, right? To be able to collaborate and get along well with others is a key component, not only of a board of education or my workplace, your workplace. I've been able to create relationships, both current and in the past, based off of understanding where that person is coming from, listening to what is important to them, and subsequently using that to create a strong relationship with them. That makes my career better if I listen and understand where you're coming from, and make your career better as well. So from an ability standpoint, listening, and just understanding that it takes a lot of people to solve one issue, and you can't do it alone. We do this a lot through General Motors in terms of working as one team. We have 8 individual behaviors that we try to live on a daily basis, and we realize that we are better if we work as a team as compared to an individual. So I really respect that about GM and really try to correlate that throughout my life, and it's worked out pretty well.
Brian, what is your vision for the education of our community?
Good question. So, when I think of my boys, I think of how successful they've been, but yet I know the challenges that we've had as a district over the last 10 to 15 years. So if we can do it in those times, and one son graduating 15 and one in 20, then there's no reason why we couldn't do it going forward with the additional resources. I look at the bond passage, and I look at just the improvement of our school overall. I just feel that we have momentum going, that I see nothing but an improvement overall in terms of the reputation of Huron Valley schools and the performance of the students. Again, I travel around, and there's culture within schools as I go into these other school buildings. And sometimes you feel that negative culture. Sometimes you can feel a positive culture. I've always felt a positive culture when I worked with the Huron Valley School District, either be through officiating or through working with my own kids and the staff of that. The staff is always positive, it's always outgoing, and they care. So with time, that culture will just continue to breed positive energy, and will continue to breed, create a positive future for our district.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Wiseman, you have another question?
Yes. As a board member, Brian, you'll be asked to make decisions where you must put aside what's best for you, your family, your friends, and your school in particular, to do what's best for all students in our district. What does this mean to you?
A couple things. So I have an advantage, I guess, in the fact that neither of my boys are in school, so I don't have that conflict, if you would. But I also have that experience to know that I've gone through all 13 years of their education, so I can leverage that to make those decisions. When all said and done, we have to focus on what's best for the kids and what's best for the school district as a whole. I have no problem in keeping that clarity and making those decisions and supporting those decisions as a board. That's what we're here for, and that's our obligation. That's our responsibility. And if we can't do that, then we're failing our students in our district. So it's one of the top priorities for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from our treasurer, Ms. Pastana.
Welcome, Brian.
Oh, thank you.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance the community concerns, students' needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your own personal value and beliefs to determine how you would vote on that issue.
I should have wrote this down as you're saying.
I know. It's a long question.
Well, the most, I guess, controversial, or the one issue out there with all of our schools is the masks and how do we handle the overall COVID situation. So I use that as an easy one, I guess. Again, as I go to different schools, I see the different ways that they're handled, but I see that Oakland County has set a standard policy that we're following here as well. So I appreciate that guidance that is given from federal agencies or state agencies or county agencies. We're not doctors. We don't make those decisions, and I'm not going to sit here and try to use any personal feelings or personal judgments that would contradict a professional as it relates to a health department, either local or state or federal. So I trust that they are in those positions because they're qualified and they've done a good job. And therefore, I will trust that the recommendations that they give are the right things for us to do and for us to follow. It's also nice from my perspective that we have a bit of continuity or consistency as we look at it from a county standpoint. It's nice for me to know when I go into one gym, they have a mask on, and the same thing when I go to another gym. So I like that consistency as one agency. And I think it sends a clear message and a consistent message as to how to handle it. So that's what I appreciate as well. So I think I covered all the aspects. Okay.
Okay, I've got a few clarifying questions, and then we'll wrap up with any last statements or comments that you have. On your application,
Yep.
It spoke about time availability.
Yes.
And we asked if, in order to determine your availability, please check any periods you definitely would not be available. Do you have your application in front of you?
Yep, I printed it as well. Yep.
Okay, so there's some check marks on there, Monday through Friday from 7 to 11. Is that what I just wanted to clarify.
So I'm sorry. So maybe I did that the opposite way. So I checked it as to when I was available.
I
guess I
thought
did
that
that
that was the
backwards.
case, and
Okay.
that's, part of the reason of wanting to clarify
my
that with,
apologies.
with
Yep.
all the candidates.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I did notice that you have board meetings at different times, not always in the evening. I think the majority of the times are in the evening, but you have other times.
Yeah.
I can be flexible as needed. I have some flexibility working from home, so.
Yeah.
If I have some notice, I'm sure I can make some
yeah,
accommodations.
predominantly our regular board meetings are Monday
Mm-hmm.
evenings at 6 o'clock.
Mhm.
Usually twice a month, but it has to be by law at least once a month.
Sure.
We do have committee meetings like you mentioned at various times.
Okay.
So thank you. I wanted to
Mhm.
clarify that. The other thing I wanted to ask is, of course, this is an appointed position. And from a board's perspective, our most important decision, I feel like, is always the hiring of a superintendent. And we, I think we did a great job with the superintendent that we have a few years ago. But the second most important decision, and I've had to do this a few times, and I've been in your seat, and so has Ms. Cotter has been in your seat. That's how we first met, actually, through this process. But
Yep.
Part of the question is, this appointment will end, and the election, there'll be a special election for the remainder of this seat.
Right.
And do you have, if appointed, is this a seat that you would continue to pursue? I mean, there's other seats as well, but
Sure.
you just wanted to
Yeah,
ask
my
that
intention is not just temporary, just to be on this for a few months. I wouldn't waste my time or your time to do it just for a temporary basis. So my intention would be to run and hopefully secure the long-term position or
Okay.
election.
All right, great. Another clarifying question. Do you have any issues or concerns with or attending MASB, which is the Michigan Association of School Boards, or NSBA, which is the National School Board Association, conferences and trainings to become a certified board member?
No, I look at that as definitely a nice skill to have and would help me in my position.
Okay, great. And then also that you understand that this appointment is a nonpartisan board position, and that you are being appointed to that, and that party politics and platforms or issues of the Republican or Democratic Party have no place at the Board of Education.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
understand that?
Yep.
Okay, great. And then any last statements or comments for you? Anything you want to talk about in your application or share with us?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, I'm very honored, first of all, that I was chosen to interview, knowing there's 11 candidates and 4 were chosen. And I listened to the qualifications when you chose those other 3 candidates, and I'm very honored that I was chosen. So thank you all for that, and I appreciate the nomination and the chance to speak. So whether I'm given this position or not, I'm sure I'm with very good company in terms of the other 3 candidates. So I thank you for that. But I just want to reiterate and stress the fact that I'm very interested in this position from the standpoint of helping to give back to my community. And I really feel as if I have I won't say an obligation, but for lack of a better word, an obligation to do something to thank the community for what they've done for my son. So given my background and experience and my skills and knowledge, I think I'd be a very good fit for this. I think based off of the requirements of the position, I think I'm very qualified and would be a very good board member. So so with that, I thank you all for your time. I appreciate the attention and the opportunity to present myself.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
right, we're going to get started.
I'm good. How are you?
Are you ready, Fred? All right. Okay, welcome, Rose. Thank you for being here. We're a little ahead of schedule. That's unusual for a board meeting. But thank you. Can you say your last name?
You pronounced it beautifully the other night.
Oh,
So
well.
D'Ambrosi is the
Oh,
proper way.
okay.
When Laura first pronounced it, I was like, it kind of shocked me. I was like, usually people stutter on it. And then when you had brought it up, I went, nope, said it perfectly.
All right,
So
good,
thank you for
good.
that.
All right, thank you for being here. Thank you for putting in an application. Congratulations on being selected as one of the finalists for the board. A lot of great candidates and applications came in from the district, and we certainly appreciate everybody who's stepped forward during these challenging times to be willing to commit to the school board. I think there's a special place in heaven for school board members. At least that's what I tell myself in the evening. But we wanted to welcome you here this evening, and thank you for being here. I'm going to kick things off with a couple of questions myself, and then we'll rotate questions around the board. And the first one is for you to provide a little bit of background on yourself.
Okay. I am, I've been a resident of Highland Township for 26 years. I am a mom of 2 boys. One just recently graduated from Milford High last school year, actually. And the other one is currently a freshman at Milford High. So I'm very aware of everything going on and the school system as it's been for the last, as long as it would have been 15, 16 years when my oldest started. So I was a business owner of 2 small businesses, and then I transitioned into running a larger business for a family member, and I did all the financial background for it. Even though I have a skilled trade, I ended up, because of running the 2 businesses, you obviously learn a lot when it comes to the finances. So I went ahead and took over the financial end of it for my family member. And so because of that, I've dealt with the state, local, federal, all the different kinds of taxes that you can imagine, all the runnings of the businesses, which is sometimes not fun, you know. The rewards are great, but it can be difficult. So that's a little bit about my background. I think that's it. Currently, I work at home.
Okay.
I have a very flexible schedule. I have basically what amounts to a part-time job, but I make my own hours. So.
Okay, great. First question I have here, or outside of the background question, is why are you interested in serving on this school board?
I've been involved with the community I feel like practically since the day we moved in. Before that, we purchased property here first. And when I first purchased, both my husband and I are not from the Highland area. To me, Highland was always the area right around Camp Dearborn and Kensington Metro Park, which is what we used to come to all the time when we were kids. And then when we grew up and I eventually got married and we lived in the city, this opportunity came up to live in Highland, and I knew nothing of Highland. So in my research, it became very intriguing to me. And one of the main things I was looking at when I looked into living into a new area was the school system, because that was very important to me, because I knew we were going to have a family. And then also selfishly for the value of my home and property. That is one of the biggest things that will help a home's value. So I looked at it right from the very beginning. And then when my oldest child got into school, that was the year that Apollo closed. And so I, as a new mom, was like, well, this is, I wasn't expecting that. I thought, you go along, you put your kid in school, you let him go, and everything, and it goes beautifully. Wait, what? The school he's going to is closing? And so I had become very involved. And then the teachers started moving around, and then I got the great experience of other parents' opinions. And that really opened my eyes. So from that moment on, I became very, very focused on my child's education, on my community around me, and the effects. So for me, this is just another step into that direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question will be asked by our Vice President, Denise Forrest.
Okay, just finishing my sentence, my note taking. Hi, Rose.
Hi,
Thanks for
Denise.
being here. Thanks
Thanks.
for putting in your application. I'm going to ask you about the challenging times that we've faced this year and last year. And aside from what you kind of just said, why have you decided to be part of the decision-making process that goes on in our school board governance team?
Part of my experience with the school board is that I've been on different committees and in part of different meetings through our trying times, what we thought were trying before the pandemic. I mean, 10 years ago, if you would have told me that what we were going
Right.
through was a drop in the bucket compared to what we're going through now, I would have said you're crazy, because, you know, we thought, you know, finances and school closings and things like that were the worst. But having those experiences has made me very aware that when we came up against the pandemic and we had to deal with what we had to deal with, was a very trying time. And for me, the experience of knowing what you all had to go through and the decisions you had to make, and again, talking with the community and the families and stuff, you know, and a lot of people would ask my opinion, because knowing that I'm involved in the community and knowing that I knew a lot would say, well, what do you think? Do you think that this is going to be you know? And my answer always was, I had faith that the Board of Education and our local officials would make the right decision for our students. Would it be the right decision for my child, you know, respectively? Maybe not. But as a whole, we have to look at it that way. And having watched my son, my oldest, who the pandemic hit when he was a junior, and then it continued while he was a senior, and seeing how other family members and other kids have grown up, I see that he was markedly, completely different child than some of the other students who have graduated prior, and maybe will be graduating this year, which should be different. But he was affected, especially the last 2 years of high school.
So you've talked about problem solving, talking to your
Yes.
communities. So how do you deal with
sorry,
that?
I
And
didn't
how?
finish
No,
your
that was.
question.
This is just an extra question for you. So
Yeah, no, so
continue.
I think that, you know, being part of those committees and watching things grow. I mean, I was part of the advisory committee for the millages back, I can't remember what year that was, but it would have been not the bonds.
The 13 and 14?
Yes, the 13 and 14.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that was a difficult thing. But working with it and working with everybody and watching what was involved was, you know, life-changing when it comes to this kind of thing. You realize people do not realize what it's involved to run a school system and what the background stuff is. And then when you fast forward, and I'll tell you the one thing that I meant to say earlier that really hit me hard. When we started having our schools, when my kids started going to school, and I started looking deeper into how the school board worked and how things worked, and I knew the financial backgrounds, and I'd go to the DPC meetings and I would hear the different budgets and stuff and understand it all. I was impressed, and I cannot tell. That's the number one thing I tell people. I have relatives who live in Troy, and I have relatives who live in Bloomfield Hills, and they'll talk about their schools, and I'll say, you have got no room to talk, because when I tell you how much money our children get per student compared to your students, and by the way, our school averages meet and sometimes beat your school averages, and they'll just look. My brother-in-law looks at me amazed that. And I said, yeah, we're doing better than you, you know, and we only get, at the time was like $7,800 per student. And he's like, you're kidding. He goes, I don't even think I know how much. I do. It's 12,000, blah, 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 you know. And so they would just look at me like I was, I had a horn growing out of my head. But those are the things that, make our school great. We take that little bit of money and we still have a great school system. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's impressive to me what we do with it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Our next question comes from our board secretary, Ms. Cotter.
Hi, Rose. Welcome. You look very familiar.
We've worked together on Blessings in a Backpack.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great program.
It is.
And welcome tonight. Certainly the questions you've answered, I understand you sound like much of a advocate for Huron Valley.
I am.
I appreciate that. So my question is, what do you think are the most important skills for our students to have when they graduate?
Well, having had a recent graduate, that's a very good question. I, of course, always say that life skills are important. But life skills cover not just, being able to budget a checkbook or fill out financial papers or, decide on what school you're going to. It also means you have to be able to work with people. And I feel that when my child was younger, he used to always have to deal with all the different students in class. And I'll never forget one time he told me, we were discussing the fact that he was having trouble. And I had gotten called or let know from the paras that he did not excuse the behavior of some of the kids with special needs that were in his class. And so when I had this discussion with him, I said, well, honey, he has anger issues or he's got these issues. And he's like, it still doesn't make it right. And it hit me really hard. I went, you're right. It doesn't make it, right. But someday you're going to have a boss who might have some of these issues, or you might have a coworker that you have to work with who might be on the autistic scale, and you're going to have to deal with this. For me, that was the day that I realized that public education, as much as we had looked at all the different educations available to our kids, we decided on the public education school system with HVS. And that was the day I said that was the right decision, because his life skills is set up for him to take him through life.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next question will be from board trustee, Mr. Wiseman.
Thank you for being here, Rose. Appreciate it. Working effectively with other school board members and the superintendent requires skills in communication and decision-making. How do you see yourself working with other members of the leadership team, and what is your vision for the education of HVS in our community?
I think I bring a unique set of skills with my financial background and with my many years of community service to our area. Besides being on many PTOs for all the PTOs for my kids through their school years, I am recently part of the Huron Valley Youth Assistance Program, which is our program for at-risk youth and our low-income students. And that when I first became part of that wasn't an education in itself, but a very important part of who we are and what we do. And I'm also part of the Optimist Club, which runs the Blessings in a Backpack program. And that became one of my things near and dear to my heart, that when my kids were in elementary school, although we did not use them, we didn't benefit from that program, I could see and I learned a lot about the Title I programs and what was necessary to help all the children in our school district. So, sometimes I laugh and I said, I don't have the straight A students that I wish I had, I'm not one of those parents, but my kids have brought experiences to me that I would have never, ever had. And the schools have brought experiences to me that I would have never, ever had. So I think I bring a unique set of circumstances. And I think because of my backgrounds in working with the different board members and committees, that I have something valuable to bring to you.
Thank you. Next question. As a board member, you'll be asked to make decisions where you must put aside what's best for you, your family, your friends, and your school to do what's best for all students in the entire district. What does this mean to you?
It's interesting that you say that or ask that, because I was asked to put my application in for the school board when Mr. Long resigned by actually 3 different people, different parts of my life. And by the second person, I said, why do you think I would be a good fit? It just kind of took me back. And her response was, what I thought. She goes, well, you're involved in the community. I know a lot about local politicking. I ran for office in 2020. And so she's like, you're just aware of everything. And she goes, most importantly, you would make the right decision regardless of what I want or what you want. And I thought that was pretty profound that, my friends and family feel that way about me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from our board treasurer, Denise Pastana.
Hey, hi,
Hi,
Rose.
Denise.
Nice to see you. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, students' needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your own personal values and beliefs to determine how you would vote on that issue.
There's been many decisions that you've had to make. 2 that come to mind. One takes me back to the school closings and how difficult that had to be for everybody, and watching and being on the different committees with that. And then, of course, recently the pandemic rules and stuff. Did you say as far as it has to do with local, state, and federal guidelines too?
Go ahead and read it again.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
okay.
It's a long question.
It is a long one. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about. Describe how you would balance it between community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, and how you would determine to vote on that issue.
Thank you for repeating it. As important as the different, obviously we have to follow the rule of law, and those would be the first thing that you have to consider. If we get to a situation which we have had in recent years, especially with our local, recently with the pandemic, and most recently we can go with the masks, I find it important that as well as what is recommended to us, I feel that it's important that we do what is good for our community. And I believe in the beginning of the school year, when we first looked at it, we also looked at our experience with what we had happening in Huron Valley, most specifically the Summer Academy, where we had 1,400 students going through there for 8 weeks, and we had little or no cases of COVID. So I appreciated that the board took that under consideration and didn't just say, well, Oakland County thinks that we should do this, so therefore we should follow what Oakland County does. They considered it, but they also considered, I talked about you like you're not here. You all considered it like you considered what was important from the rule standpoints, and you also considered what was important locally. And I think that that's the way to approach a decision.
Rose, I've got a few follow-up, more or less clarifying questions, fairly short, and then we'll wrap up with any last statements or comments that you want to share with us, whether it's your application or just in general what you want to share. First question is, this position, this vacancy is until the election in November. So whoever wins, this will be on the ballot, and it will be a special election to fill the balance of this term, which will conclude on December 31st, 2024. So I'll have two years in actually any remaining board meetings for after the November election. If appointed to this position, do you intend to either run for this position or another position on the board?
Yes.
Okay. The next clarifying question is, on the application, I believe it's on page 5 of your application. I just want to clarify. So I believe you've got a few check marks in there for the most part, but it says in order to determine your availability, please check any periods when you definitely would not be available to participate in board activities. I see most of the time frames in the evening are open, and there's a few check marks, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
That question may, in future applications, I think we'll draft it a little bit differently. I'm looking at Miss Root right now.
And then
That's not her fault. It's actually, mine, but it's something for us to do because
I said you had to throw a confusing question in,
Yeah.
didn't you?
that's part of the education system.
Yeah.
We just want to see who's
Multiple
paying attention.
choice, you have different answers.
So,
No, that was, I'm very flexible. As I stated
Yeah.
earlier, there's times of the day that I prefer not to have them.
yeah.
But that, it's not a definite, so I'm very open.
Yeah, good. Another question I want to ask is, can you clarify whether you have any issues or concerns with or attending MASB or NSBA conferences and trainings? MASB is the Michigan Association of School Boards. NSBA is the National School Board Association to become a certified board member.
Not at
Okay.
all.
And then the last clarifying question here is that you understand that this appointment is a nonpartisan board position that you are being appointed to, and that party politics and platforms or issues of the Republican or Democratic parties have no place at the Board of Education table.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then the floor is yours. Any comments that you want to share with us or impart with us?
Yeah. I think what I'd like to leave you with is, again, going back to my son graduating, obviously your first child graduating is impressing anyways, but the graduation ceremony it hit me in a lot of different ways. First of all, it was interesting to me in my family to find out a lot of Dr. Salah's background when he talked about coming from an immigrant family and how he was raised and stuff. It hit home with me because me and my husband are in the same situation. We're first generation citizens, I guess it would be first generation immigrants, right? And so I really tied into that, and I thought that was, it was interesting to me that he brought all that to hit the background. And the second thing that hit me was while we were sitting there on that extremely hot day,
Amen.
looking over the crowd, I kind of had a snapshot in my mind, and it was an interesting one because they said it's really interesting how the kids were placed on the field. And to me, it was like there's kind of a snapshot of our world. You had our very advanced students in front. Many of them were salutatorians and valedictorians and very smart children. And those are the ones who are going to be the movers and shakers of the world, right? They're already at universities and they're going to be going on. And some of them, maybe many of them, will not end up in our area, but they'll go on to be, research people and find out the next medical breakthrough and all that fun stuff. And that's what we need. And then there was another small part that was our special needs children who are part of our community, and they have a place in it too. And we have HVS is a wonderful program for them. I think it's probably top notch compared to some of the other ones that I've dealt with. So, and I kind of saw them, and I said, I saw their place in our world. You see them maybe as a grocery store clerk, or different kinds of jobs that we need to function in our world. And then you saw the mass of kids, and that is our future. That's the group of kids who they vary from A's and B's to D's and E's, or D's because they couldn't be there if they had E's, right? So they're the ones who will stay in the area. They'll continue our community. They'll become everything from, a grocery store manager to a small business owner to filling in all those professions, skilled trades. And they'll be the people that we need to talk to and convince as to why we make our decisions on the school board. Because nationally, it's not just HVS, we're aging. And according to the U.S. Census of 2020, more than half of our society, not our generation, more than half of our population is retiring. So they're the ones who are going to make our decisions for our schools. And so for me, looking at that snapshot back with the group of kids and who they were, and that's our future, and that's how it's been. We need to connect with them and let them know, not just with the kids that are in our school system and not with the parents and families that are in school system. So for me, it's very important for our message to continue to get out there and to grow, and for us to thrive and to survive. Because if we don't survive, our world is over. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Are we ready, Lori? All right, we're going to get started. Last one. Denise first.
You all set, Fred? All right, we're ready to go. Welcome, Amy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being flexible too. I know you had the 7 o'clock time slot, but we're a little ahead of schedule. So thank you.
No, thank you.
I appreciate it. We're going to get started. We've got some questions here. We'll each board member, I'll call on them, and then they'll ask you the question, and then we'll wrap up with you having an opportunity to share with us anything that you'd like to share. So first, I just want to start off by you giving us some background. I know you put it in the application. You can share what's in there or additional stuff, but the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to be one of your Final Four. I'm beginning to wonder if this is what the basketball players feel like when they go in March Madness to Final Four, because it is a little nerve-wracking. My husband and I have been residents of Huron Valley for 23 years. We moved in to our home the day after our oldest son was born. We have 4 children that have attended, are attending, and have graduated from Huron Valley schools. I received my bachelor's degree from Oakland University in business with a concentration in marketing. I began work at Michigan National Bank in their headquarters, first in the trust and investment services, where I learned some really important, aspects of business that I think translate to education. I learned first that everybody is an individual, and you must customize your program to meet the individual's need. And then when I moved into the marketing department, I learned that you need to have a vision and you need to have a plan if you're going to succeed with your goals. And in marketing, that's what we do. We plan. And we do different campaigns and different projects, but truly, our goal is to plan. And after about 5 years at Michigan National, we had our first child, and I made the decision to be a stay-at-home mom. Little did I know that would really change the trajectory of my life, because I was able to devote time, effort, talents, experience to my community. And during that time, I was able to really come along with my children to their different activities and to get involved. First, with the PTA at Country Oaks, we started with committees, and then I moved into the board positions. I held the board president for two different terms. And then with CW3 Soccer, I held just about every position there, including president. Made some very tough decisions there, and it was really exciting. And then in our church, my husband and I are still the middle school Sunday school teachers, and we've been doing that for about, 15 or 16 years, as well as teaching children music at church and being in the music team myself. All of these experiences allowed me to be part of many children's lives. But it wasn't just for my own children. It was for the entire community. In 2015, my youngest went to kindergarten, and I was given the opportunity to go back to work. It was daunting, and providentially, a job was dropped in my lap to be the director of the Highland White Lake Business Association. And I could combine my love of community with my love for marketing. It couldn't have been better. And so I began working on a part-time basis. And during that time, I've been involved with our scholarship program for Huron Valley students at Lakeland High School, Milford High School, and now at Harbor High School. Involved in the Highland Prayer Breakfast, in the Highland Playground, Chill at the Mill for fundraising for that. I have been able to meet so many of our community organizations to find out what their passion was and how I could help to shed a light on them, to spotlight them. And then just recently, I was also asked to take a secondary part-time job for Western Oakland Transportation Authority. WOTA, as we affectionately call it, is transportation for seniors and disabled adults. That is a very far cry from anything I've ever done before, but I'm a lifelong learner. And so as the HR and marketing person, I understood the marketing aspect, but HR was completely foreign to me. And so I did what every one of our students has to do. I opened the internet and tried to figure out, how do I do HR? And then we had a pandemic. Super fun times, let me tell you. But it's been really rewarding for me because WOTA is a government entity. So I've learned a lot about budgets, and I've learned a lot about how do you work within the confines of the government. It is not like business. I also learned about hiring and retaining and sometimes firing employees. That is not something I've ever done, and it has been, in many regards, very rewarding. During this time, I continued to work for HVS in whatever fashion that was, whether it was bringing meals for teacher luncheons or making contributions at the fun run or just volunteering. And then in 2019, I worked on the Bond and Sinking Fund, successful passage, and I'm currently on the HVS task force. And so that's a small introduction to who I am.
Thank you for that. So we've asked this question in the application, but feel like it's also important to ask it in the interview process, which is, why are you interested in serving on the school board?
This is a very good question. Many years ago, I was the PTA president at Country Oaks. And we brought in all of the candidates for the board. And I believe at that time, Denise Pastana was running. And she was like me. She was a PTA mom. She was grassroots. She was doing all of the things that every one of the moms in that room was doing. I don't know all of Denise's background. She may have a background in education that I don't know about. But at that time, she was PTA mom. And I thought one day that could be me. But I didn't know if I really could pull that off. I have a little bit more experience under my belt now. And we have all gone through probably the worst 2 years of our life. Without a doubt, I have. It has been challenging to watch my children struggle. It has been challenging to watch my loved ones pass away. And the thing I think that has hurt my heart in a way that I didn't even realize was the fact that our community is divided. That hurts my heart. That makes me think, no, not on my watch. Now, I say that because I am not a critical person by nature. But when I see something that needs addressing, I want to be part of the solution. I want to be a bridge builder. I have a wide range of friends that have varying degrees of opinions, belief systems. And I think that for me, this is the time that I need to be a part of the board. This is the time where I can be a bridge for the parents, for our businesses, for our community organizations, and for our students.
Thank you. Next question will be asked by our Vice President, Denise Forrest.
Thanks for being here, Amy. Thanks very much. And my question is, you've kind of addressed this just a little bit in what you just said very movingly. In the challenging times we are facing this year, last year, why have you decided to be part of the decision-making process? And you kind of mentioned it. If you could maybe expand on that and then talk about the bridge building skills that you just talked about with problem solving, et cetera. So how'd you get at it?
So I don't have all the answers. Please don't think that I'm coming to the board and I know it all. I don't. I hope to bring fresh ideas. Why? Is it because all of you are moldy? No, but because I have never sat here. I've always sat back here. One of the things that is probably one of my strong suits, one of the skills is being able to take a vision, break it down into parts, and make it manageable. Many times I have tackled problems and I would tell people, we're going to shoot for the stars, but if we lasso the moon, that's pretty good. And I mean that. As a person who has a vision, one of the things that I think is really important, I don't envy the places that you have sat for the last 2 years. I know that it has not been easy. So I'm not coming here saying to you, well, man, that was not good. We all know hindsight is always 20/20. And there was no way for us to understand what this pandemic would do to our children, to our community, to ourselves. And so I'm looking at what can I bring to the table? I really do believe that the tone that the board sets has a ripple effect for our entire community. I am constantly amazed at the value that the school district brings to our entire community. Every one of us is a stakeholder in our public education. When our public education is phenomenal, we have a greater sense of community. You know, during the pandemic, everyone would say, we're all in this together. And we were, but not really. Some of us lost jobs. Some of us lost family members. Some of us lost hope. We were in it together, but we didn't manage it together. So in terms of looking forward, in terms of being a bridge, my hope is to bring concerns that I hear in the community. And, you know, they're not always negative concerns. Sometimes they're positive concerns. Sometimes they're really great ideas. And that really is my goal, is to do those types of things, to say, okay, we have these issues. How can we, within our vision, the vision that we've cast, how can we break down these issues and how can we address them? Because I think when we address these issues that are brought up and we address them in a transparent and a collaborative way, we will see a community that says, man, that board's got it together. That school district's got it together. And when the school district has it together, guess what happens? People move into our school district. Our school district grows. Our tax base grows. Our businesses grow. It is a win-win-win-win-win situation for everyone. That answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, the next question is coming from our board secretary, Lindsay Cotter.
Welcome, Amy. I'm glad you're here tonight. So my question is, what do you think are the most important skills for students to have when they graduate from Huron Valley?
Great question. I am a huge advocate of reading. I believe that, I think I said this in my application, public school is where we do learn all the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And hopefully everyone who comes out of Huron Valley Schools can do that, right? Those are the basics. But when I talk about reading, I'm talking about being able to take information that we read. Is this a good source? Is this something that we can take and assimilate? Is it something that we can comprehend? And is it something that we can judge to be fact or fiction? So it's important to me that when our students leave us, they have a very good basis for how do we discern fact from fiction? How do we take information and incorporate it into our knowledge base and then go out and utilize it effectively? Because if I keep asking my employer the same question over and over and over again, I will not have a job. So it's very important that our students have that ability. Secondly, I really want our students to be problem solvers. And problem solvers, that happens in a variety of ways, right? I work with a group of people that are really fantastic. And that's one of the things that I can say about them. They are problem solvers, meaning they have a problem. They don't just say, Amy, how do I fix this problem? They look at the problem and they look at it from a lot of different ways. They do some research. And if they can't solve the problem, then they come to me and we collaborate on that problem. But they do their due diligence first, and then they go and work more collaboratively. Problem solving, very important. I think being able to write and to be able to write in such a way that it represents you well. So some will out of Huron Valley Schools with an idea of how to manage their finances. That's a very practical thing. But we have a lot of students that have zero idea of what a checking account is, much less how to fill out a check. And I know nobody does that anymore, but there will be a time that I do too. But there will, and in my line of work, I'm completing checks. You need to know how to complete a check. You need to know how to balance your own budget. You need to know how to pay yourself first so that your retirement is provided for when you get older. Those are very small things. I recognize that might not be part of our curriculum, but I truly believe it should be. So there's a lot more, but I will leave it at 4. How's that?
All right. The next question is from our board trustee, Mr. Weisman.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tom.
Nice seeing you. Working effectively with other school board members and the superintendent requires skills in communication and decision-making. How do you see yourself working with other members of this leadership team? And I think the other portion of my question is that you've answered most of it, if not all. What is your vision for education in our community?
Fortunately, I have actually worked with all of you. And I know you to be people who can have civil discourse. We won't always agree. We all come from different experiences. We all come from different walks of life, even probably socioeconomic. So I know that each of you can have a conversation, and we may not agree, but we can come to a consensus. That is not always easy, though. And there may be times where I'm going to hold the line because I believe in my gut it's really important. And there will be other times that I will have to compromise because it's for the good of everyone else. I have been very fortunate to work with a wide variety of people. And I think that the most I've learned is that listening is very important. Somebody once said, if you listen twice as much as you speak, you really will be ahead in life. I will strive to be an active listener. I will strive to be somebody who looks at fact and who takes into account what the vision is for Huron Valley Schools, a vision that this board has set.
Thank you. Next question, as a board member, you'll be asked to make decisions where you must put aside what's best for you, your family, your friends, in your particular school to do what's best for all students in the entire district as a whole. What does this mean to you?
When we were reviewing the bond, the proposals of what our schools might look like, I was sitting at the table and I looked at Lakeland High School. My kids have always been cross-country runners. We're putting an access road through the cross-country course. Now, I will tell you, I am very proud of that cross-country course. I'm very proud of that cross-country course because I've spent a lot of time on it, and it's very unique that we can have a cross-country course on our grounds. But you know what? That's not as important as being able to have an access road that we can get ambulances in if we need to. That's not as important as having emergency vehicles, or if, God forbid, something horrible happened, being able to evacuate our school. Now that might seem a little, it's probably not as important as some of the other decisions that might have to be made. But the reality is that the good of the district always has to come first. And that's something I actually learned with the PTA. You know, it was really easy for us to fund programs that would help a few. There are great programs out there, but many students cannot participate because they either don't have transportation, they don't have the funds to participate, and it would have been easy as a PTA board for us to cater to the smaller group, the group that we knew were supporting our fundraising efforts. But instead, we tried to make our budget so that it made the most sense for the entire school. That is something that we have to do. And there may be times where I don't want to see that cross-country course go away, but I know it's the best thing for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next question is from our board treasurer, Denise Pastana.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Denise.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance the community concerns, students' needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how you would vote on that issue.
If you need us to repeat it again.
No,
it's long.
I think I know what you're asking. I was looking at some of I was looking at some of the decisions. I'm going to answer this the way I want to answer this. I am a data person. I love numbers. I love to look at raw data. I am that crazy person who followed every COVID stat every week. I wanted to see what was going on. I followed other states. I followed other countries. I still do. I want to know what's working and what's not working. I understand that right now there are decisions that are being made about COVID based on what the health department is telling us to do. I thought it was disingenuous for the health department to say that everyone had 5 days of quarantine, except for schools. That's not good science. If 5 days is good science, and I'm not even making that judgment, then it's good for everyone. I was glad to see that we were not doing close contact. I find COVID is weird. COVID is very weird. We had COVID this past early January, Christmas time. I lied. 3 out of 5 of us got it. 3 out of 5? That doesn't make sense. I would love to see Huron Valley advocate with Oakland County Health Department to remove our masks. That's my personal opinion. I know, though, there's a balancing act here. I'm not unaware of the fact that there may be a time where someone says your funding is going to be cut off if you don't adhere to these things. But it's really important to me that we are careful with what is law, what are guidelines, and what we need to push back on. So I will give you that.
Okay. I've got a few clarifying questions here from your application. Just want to look at.
Okay.
The last question that was asked on the application had to do with time availability.
Okay.
And it is an interesting writing of asking that question. So I just want to make sure that we've captured it. There's not a lot of check marks on it, but it's saying what can't you definitely not participate. So I just want to make sure you've captured it correctly.
Yes, I actually answered it wrong initially.
Okay.
And then I went back and read it and said, oh, that says the opposite. So I am a sports mom. So Saturdays are a little bit tricky with soccer and volleyball. Friday nights are tricky with volleyball because that's when Shannon likes to have her rec volleyball. But most of the time I can get away during the day if I have enough notice. And I work very close to the board office if that is where meetings are held. Most of my evenings I can work around schedules. I have a very supportive husband who doesn't mind driving to soccer or volleyball.
Okay, good. Another question, comment here. So this is a vacancy that will be filled up until the election. Whoever runs for this special election seat will then fill the balance of 2022 from that election date once the election results are certified, and then we'll continue on for 2023 and conclude on December 31st, 2024. The question is, if appointed to this position, would you be pursuing a board seat? It doesn't, what I want to qualify here is you don't have to run for the special election, that there's other seats available too, but would it be your intention to run for the board office?
I would say a qualified yes.
Okay.
This may not be a good fit.
Yeah.
So I want to be open to, if this is a good fit, yes.
Yeah.
If this is not a good fit, I'll do what's best for my community.
Certainly understand. The other question here is whether you have any issues or concerns with or attending MASB or NSBA conferences and training. MASB stands for Michigan Association of School Boards, and NSBA is National School Board Association, and conferences and trainings to become a certified board member.
I would feel that would be necessary in order to understand the scope, the responsibility.
Okay, thank you. And then also that, just clarifying that you understand that this appointment is a nonpartisan board position, and you are being appointed to this, and that party politics and platforms or issues of the Republican or Democratic parties have no place at the Board of Education table.
I understand.
Okay. And then the floor is yours for any last statements or comments or anything. So that's an open-ended for you.
This has been a very interesting process. I appreciate your time this evening. It would be an honor to serve our community in this fashion. I would hope that if you select me as a board member, that I would be able to bring to the board something unique, that I would be a voice for the people, the voice for our businesses, a voice for our community organizations, our students. I think that regardless of what happens here tonight, I will always be a Huron Valley Schools supporter. I will continue to advocate for public school. I will continue to ask our local government representatives to continue to fund education. I do believe that public education is the means by which we keep a free country. I think in my application, I said it is the, after I read it, I thought, you guys must think I'm crazy. But I believe that public education allows us to maintain a civil society, one that allows us to have civil discourse without violence. It allows us to have opposing viewpoints without chaos. And it helps us to continue the great tradition of those radicals of 1776. Because this country is worth it. And the only way that we maintain this country is by having public education that teaches reading and writing and arithmetic and problem solving. And it gives our students an equal opportunity to learn these things. We are not ever going to be equally equal ability. I will never run a 5-minute mile, ever. Although I have 3 sons that will do it. But I'll never be able to do that. But public education, this amazing concept of taking every single person and saying to them, you have value, and we're going to amp that value up by giving you the tools to be successful. I will always advocate for that. So regardless of what happens here tonight, I appreciate the privilege to come speak to you. I appreciate being in the Final Four. This is not March Madness, it's January Madness, because I'm just a PTA mom, a proud PTA mom, but I'm a PTA mom. And I appreciate the fact that you would allow me to talk with you tonight and that you would allow me this great honor to sit here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for being here. All right, we will be adjourned until 7:10. We're going to take a bio break here. And all right.